On our last episode about solar, you saw how Sally and I, or maybe I, designed, stop laughing, designed our solar system, the thought process we went through and what we were going to put in. Needless to say, we've been doing it 2 years and our plan is still solid and we're starting to put in what we planned over 2 years ago. So this is our installation part 1 and hopefully part 2 will follow and it'll be up and running in part 2. Last time you saw this inverter, it was in a box and it's been sat here for about 5 or 6 weeks now, and then eventually I said, right, we're going to put it up. And this unit is actually close on 40 kilos. So Sally and I, both of us, we actually hung it up the other day, and it was a major achievement because it's a very expensive piece of equipment. But Sally did say to me, she said, I probably shouldn't be climbing up step ladders with flip-flops on carrying a 40 kilogram piece of equipment. Can't really see what a point is, but there you go. It's up.
Yay!
This is the brains of the outfit, the Victron Easy Solar 2GX 48 5000. It's a 5,000 watt inverter. It actually only puts out 4,000 watts. The beauty of this system and why we really wanted it is we're going to have a BYD battery down here, either 8 or 12,000 kilowatts, which when we connect it up. The beauty of this is it takes the AC that comes into it and it generates 2 AC outputs, AC1 and AC2. AC1 is essential output, AC2 is non-critical. So in the event of a power failure, power goes down, it'll drop AC2, but it'll continue to power AC1 from the inverter and the battery, so we'll never lose power. What we've done is we've reconfigured our circuit breaker board over there. The electrician came in yesterday and reconfigured and connected all this up. So all of the AC wiring and all of the reconfiguring on the AC side has been done by a qualified electrician, not me. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm putting the hardware up, coming up with a plan, putting the junction boxes together, and then the electrician is coming in to connect it up because it's really important that you get a qualified electrician to actually connect the AC up. So just underneath here, AC1 comes in, and then it takes the inverter, and you've got AC1 out, AC2 out, which is critical and non-critical loads. So we do get power cuts here quite regularly. Now with this system, when it's up and running, if we have a power cut, we won't lose the essential items in the house. And as you can see, electrician did a lovely job, and just waiting for the battery and solar panels really. Part of the whole makeup for this system is obviously to be able to run AC1 and AC2, which is essentials and non-essentials. So when the electrician was in yesterday, he reconfigured AC1, which is essentials. So in the event of a power failure, these will always get powered by the Victron inverter. AC2, which is the green ones, which I've labelled, these are the items that will drop power if we have a mains power failure. What I'm going to be doing eventually when it's set up the top here, we've got some more units to go in, will be a manual transfer switch, so I can, if necessary, power units from AC2 from AC1 by manually balancing the load to make sure I don't exceed the 4,000 watts in the inverter. That's pretty A-level, and only I'll be doing it.
Not me.
Or not any of our guests or anything else, because you'll need to look at the inverter, look at the power loads, juggle what you're using and when you're using it to make sure that you don't go above the 4,000 watts. The inverter can peak at 9,600 and the battery can supply 9.6, but you wouldn't want to. So that's just a system which is not so much belt and braces. Having flown Boeing aircraft, they were all about redundancy, backups, switching, being able to use one system and then another. So this just gives me personally the ability to be smart with a system that's already smart but manually intervening. Part of the AC side is I wasn't going to do the AC side or anything to do with the house unless I've had it done by a qualified electrician. The last time we came in, Vincenzo the electrician had done the 2 panels, but when the inverter was in, he's put the rest of it in now, and he's put little LED lights on here to see when you've got power to the AC1 and the AC2, so you don't have to actually look and see what it is. If we have a payoff failure, these two lights will go off. The top row itself, and he really did a good job here. At the moment, we're running on power from the grid, which isn't going to the inverter. So you can see the two lights are lit up, but it's all from the grid that goes to these two, AC1 and AC2. What he's done is that when the inverter is ready to go up, all I have to do is take these off, put these ones on and this one on, and it bypasses this and sends it to the inverter, and the inverter brings it back into the AC panel, which is a really good thing, because if for whatever reason the AC inverter, sorry, the Victron inverter failed, then I could reverse this by taking these off, putting this back on, and it would bypass the inverter. So thank you, Vincenzo, for doing that, because it was really something that I didn't think about, but he did. So now we're all ready to go. Vincenzo hasn't got to come back. All I've got to do is manage to get this Victron inverter programmed, and I'll take these off, these up, and we'll be self-sufficient. Okay, when we had the house renovated, I planned ahead and asked the electricians to put in separate canal ducts, tubing ducts, for the solar panel system running from here to outside, so I could run the solar cables through over the corner to the consumer unit to actually run it all through. I thought that was brilliant, and I think it was yesterday or the day before, I thought that's easy. The hole for it was down here. I put up my cable running implement, put the cable up, and I couldn't get it out the other side. Anyway, after 4 hours of trying, I think the word is furious, because I couldn't find how to get out from here to the outside. The hole that's on the outside of the wall, I put the cable pushed through all the way through, and it came out into the consumer unit here. And the one that went from here, where it should go to the top of the roof, I couldn't find anywhere. So after 4 hours, I basically gave up and was chewing a wasp. Yesterday, when the electrician came in, together, both of us worked onto it, and I don't know how, but they actually put a separate cable run that went from here, and rather than exiting by the roof, it exits down to the bottom in a separate junction box. But anyway, it only took us about 20 minutes, and we put the cables through. 4 hours of frustration, 20 minutes of success. Brilliant. So we're outside the house on the western side, and this is where the tubes exited, so I could run the solar cables from where the inverter is up onto the roof, and we obviously had that all channeled in nice and neatly. And this is where I had 4 hours the other day trying to get the cables from the inverter to come out the hole just up there. And after 4 hours, I just couldn't get out. I couldn't figure out where it was coming out. So when the electrician came yesterday, he was on the inside, I was on the outside, and then we swapped over, and we were looking at trying to feed the wire. And it transpires that in this junction box down the bottom is where the solar panel cable ducting comes out. So not the one up the top, it's the one down the bottom. But at least it took about 15 to 20 minutes, and we had both solar cables run, and they're now coming out here. The one up the top actually leads, for some unknown reason, to where the circuit breaker panel is. I don't know. I asked them to have both of them out there, but there you go. And lastly, the combiner box is going to go on the wall just here onto the left, on this flat piece of the wall here, so it's accessible for me rather than having to go up to the roof, just in case I have to isolate or change fuses or anything like that. So actually, my electricians that installed it were obviously thinking ahead, because they put the box down here because it's an easier run for the cables up there. So they were thinking ahead for me. Maybe not. We'll talk about my combiner box now, which I'm actually building myself, and I'm building from scratch. Combiner box itself, I've decided to go for quite a large combiner box. 2 reasons. Firstly, I find it easier if it's bigger to put more things in it and have plenty of space to work in. And the second thing, allows me room for expansion. This is 40 centimetres by 30 by 18 centimetres deep, IP67 rated. And as you can see, really nice and big, easy to work in. And this I'm going to mount at the front of the house, but at such a height which is going to be easily accessible for me to work on without having to go onto the roof. So that's the box itself. Inside the box, I've got a really nice little plate which I'm mounting my unit onto. The unit itself, I've decided that rather than having isolation switches for each string before it reaches a combiner box, I'm going to have it in the combiner box, because the combiner box will be accessible from ground level for me. In here I've got isolation switches, DC, 60 amps, 600 volts, 2 of them for the 2 strings that I'm putting in initially, and I'm fusing both positive and negative sides of the PV strings. The ISC is 13.7 amps, so I require 25 amp fuses, which are all set in there. Out of the fuses here, I've got a common bus bar for the negative, common bus bar for the positive. The wire that I'm using inside here is marine grade tinned 6mm wire, which is way more than I need, but I've checked the voltage drop and it is perfect for it. Each of the lugs are ferrule ended. Coming out of the bus bar, obviously we'll come down to the circuit breaker. Need a 40 amp circuit breaker, max output is about 27 amps. And I've also got surge protection for lightning surge protection here. Haven't quite finished it off yet. Ground bus bar will come out and down the side, and I'll run all my grounding points to here from the solar panel frames, and also for the lightning surge protector as well. I was a bit short of for lugs for the common bus bar up here, and I've just got in today some high quality copper ones from Germany, because I'm trying to keep everything as high quality as I can. Voltage drop, heat, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to start fitting that up. I have designed this, and the reason I've gone big as well, I have designed it so if in the future, presently I'm looking at 2 strings of 5 or 2 strings of 6 panels, 415 watts each. But if in the future the maximum that my MPPT controller can take is 15 panels, then I'd have to go for 3 strings of 5. So I've got another isolator, and I've got another fuse holder, which, as you can see, has got plenty of room to fit in, so I can in the future, if I need it, expand this to be a 3-string box, and then all I have to do is replace the fuse for a 63 amp fuse, which I've also got. 63 amp circuit breaker, which I've also got, and then we're good to go. So I'm going to carry on working, and then putting it all together. I'll put it into the box, and then I'll show you where it's going to go, and I'll start mounting it. We're going to mount our solar panels on concrete ballasts. So we found a local place, which is down by Taranto, really responsive and nice little local firm, who delivered them really quickly, except they couldn't lift them onto the roof. So here I've got 6 ballasts for 5 solar panels at 17 degrees, and these are going to go on the north side of the kitchen area. So we're going to lift those up. I'm going to talk to a local builder about coming in and helping me lift them up. So we're going to have those at 17 degrees on the north side. On the same roof, so on the south side of the kitchen area, these ones are ballasted for 10 degrees, and they're 10 degrees lateral. So we're going to have the ability to put 4 panels 10 degrees in front of the 4 panels 17 degrees. And the reason I've made it 10 degrees is because the solar shadow from the front panels will not touch the back panels, because I'm trying to ensure that in the winter time we're going to generate as much as we can, and I don't want any shading. So I've actually worked out the exact solar shadow and the exact distance between a 10 degree and the back panels. And lastly, this is the extension, which is the second part of the roof really, and on the top of this we're going to have 4 panels, and these ones are going to be horizontal panels and at 10 degrees. And again, the reason they're 10 degrees is because the roof is slightly thinner than the kitchen roof, and I had to put them at horizontal to make sure again that the shadows from the front panel to the rear panels weren't affected. So I'm going to talk to our local builder man and ask him if he's got a lorry with a little sling to actually lift them up onto the roof, and then I can actually put them up. Sally has banned me from trying to do it manually. The heavy ones are 64 kilos and the lighter ones are 52 kilos each. So probably she's right. When we were away, or the last time, we had all the concrete ballasts down below, and these ones are only 54, they're 57, and these ones are 64 kilos each. And our friends Tracy Navarno really kindly organised a man with a big lorry to come and lift these pallets with these massive weights up onto the roof. Once they were on the roof, I spent a whole day, and I think I got up at 6 in the morning to come up here to work and space them out prior to us having the panels up. They're actually mounted on, it's like roofing mats, and I thought, oh, it's for some reason for distributing weight. Apparently, if you mount them on these black matting, if the wind comes along and it slightly moves, you don't get a graunching noise through the roof down below. So it's basically noise deadening. What I did then is, once we had these up, I positioned the mattings down, and I used a very technical way of doing it. I put a bit of string from the first one to the last ballast to get them level, and then I had a piece of wood which was the with markers on showing how the spacing, and then I manually moved them with 2 bits of string and a piece of wood to actually get them positions before Sally and I actually put the panels up. The panels were delivered. Thank you very much.
Yay.
And the batteries were delivered. Thank you very much. And it was all dumped downstairs, and we had 10 panels, and they all weigh about 22 kilos. And we had to manually lift them up.
And it's July.
Yeah, it's July. It's 40 degrees,
Hottest
and
month of the year.
so we were up at 5:30, Sally and I was down below, and I'd lift the panel up all the way up to Sally at the top. She'd take some of the weight off it. I'd climb up the ladder, and we got the panels up one by one, and then Sally and I actually then put them in to all the bits and pieces, and
the concrete bits were pretty much in the right place,
yeah,
weren't they?
within a couple of mils they were all pretty much good. So it took us about an hour and a half to put all of these panels in. We've got 10 panels in now, 430 watts, so we've got 4,300 watts of panels, and we were both very pleased, weren't we, Sally?
We were very pleased. I'm just trying to move so that we can get a shot of the other 2 lots of panels, but
and
there we go.
the spacing between the ballasts, I worked out that the solar shadows is about 0.8 meter for a 10-degree incline. We've got 10 degrees here, 10 degrees here, and these 5 are at 17 degrees. So they're all spaced out, so I'll get no solar shadows on the panels, which means during the winter time I'm going to produce the maximum amount of electricity. The last 2 days I've been wiring the panels up, and although I don't need to, any of the solar cable that's exposed to the sunlight and not underneath the panel, I've put in plastic conduit. So they're all nicely tidied up, anything that's exposed in plastic conduit. And then you can see here I've used 16mm grounding cable and grounding lugs, and I've got one whole line connecting all the panels up with a 16mm grounding cable, so I can earth the panels just in case of lightning strike, and that runs down to the combiner box. It's taken me about 2 days to do all this wiring.
You've been cooking on the roof,
and
haven't
I've
you?
been cooking on the roof.
As well
It's
as a
been
fiddler on the roof.
38, 39 degrees up here, and I can tell you at some point these aluminium parts of the panels are so hot you can't actually put your hands on them. But it was all done. I finished it off yesterday, no, in fact the day before, and the panels are actually working perfectly. 184 volts, 2 strings of 5 in parallel, and it's beautiful. They're within, in fact they're perfect with the voltage, and I've got practically no voltage drop. It was 184.3 up here, and it was 184.3 down below, which is over 20 meters away, because I've oversized the wiring as well. So again, I am in...
Talk about finding the wiring, Pete.
Yeah, yeah. If you need to find things in Italy, you can't, unless you know someone who's local, then you ask them and then they call ahead and then you have to go out and get it.
Luckily we know Franco. And
Anyway.
Franco was the one we asked about. Where on earth can we find this tubing?
Yeah, I know. Nightmare. Okay, and so from here, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you where I've run it down to the combiner box and how it's working down on the combiner box. You saw how I built the combiner box up, and after I've done the wiring up on the roof, and the wiring from the roof comes down in these two conduits here, so I've got the easterly string and the westerly string that come into the combiner box, and I mounted this on the wall, and thank goodness I oversized it. So in the combiner box now, I've got the two strings that are coming down into the isolation, running up into the fuses. It then goes into the buzz bar, the positive buzz bar, the negative buzz bar, goes into the surge protector, which is then linked into the ground earth, and that's linked into the earth to the house as well. And the output comes down to the circuit breaker, which is a 40 amp circuit breaker, and then out to the house. And you can see I've actually left, because I've got such a big compartment here, I can actually leave some spare wiring in, nicely done up. And I can isolate, because it's on the side of the house, I don't have to go onto the roof to isolate any of the panels, because I can just come here and I can pull this off and I can isolate the panels from here, and I can also change the circuit, fuses from here as well. So everything I've made is accessible, so I don't have to go onto the roof to do anything. The output comes down this tubing, which I haven't tidied up yet. I've got a few tie wraps to do, and it goes into the box which runs into the house. So again, a little bit of forethought when we were planning this out, and it's all worked out really nicely. Now this is powering up, and it's exceeding my expectations. No voltage drop, works perfectly, and it's accessible, and it's nice and big. I love it. About 4 or 5 weeks ago when we were here last time, Sally and I mounted this up, and you can see that actually we put it up. But then the battery arrived. BYD LVS 12 kilowatts of battery. And I finished off the wiring and installed it. It just fits perfectly in here. You've got the battery monitoring unit, which is plugged into the inverter, and also the battery itself. And we haven't got AC power on it at the moment, but it is generating electricity. If I look on here, because the solar panel, I've got another isolating switch here, which is the solar panels. So I've got 3 isolating. I can isolate it from outside and inside. But at the moment, it's 1,336 watts at 160 volts. So we're pushing a load of power into the battery. The battery came, it was 32%, and now it's up to about 37%. I'm going to bring it all the way up to 100% and then call it quits, because we have a slight problem with this. Put it all in together, upgraded the battery, the BMU, plugged it in, fabulous. And I've got a piece of equipment that I've got to plug into the Easy Solar, which then talks directly to the inverter in here, so I can program this one up for energy supply systems and not feeding back to the grid and all sorts of other things that I need to do. I bought a specialist Victron piece of kit to plug into here so I can do it all, and it doesn't work. I've tried everything, and I think that I've got a duff piece of equipment. So now what we've got is we've got 4,500 solar, the battery, the inverter's working, except I can't connect it to the AC because I can't program this up. So this is going to have to wait until September. But still very pleased with what I've done, because it's all working apart from being able to program this one up.
Yeah. We're almost there, aren't we?
We are almost there, almost there. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give us a thumbs up. Consider subscribing and follow us at La Bolla with the rest of the adventures that we're having here.
And we love comments.
And we do love comments. And when it comes to the comments about this, it'll be me replying, not Sally.
That's for sure.
Oh, I can have a laugh and get Sally to reply. That'd be really interesting.
There, you'll get no information whatsoever.
And as you can see here, this is the Victron portal. Solar panels producing 1,400 watts. This is the battery. It's charging at 26 amps. Going to the inverter. We don't have any AC from the grid inbound, and we don't have any AC outbound because I've isolated the inverter. But we're charging it The battery this morning was 32% and it's now 42%. Yay!
Way!
It's a result. And the next one, when I do the solar, the next one will be the system fully up and running, and the power that we use and how we're balancing the power and other things like that.
You won't be a fiddler on the roof anymore.
I won't be a fiddler on the roof.
Stop fiddling on the roof. Oh, being a fiddler on the roof.
Fiddler on the roof. Well, I'll tell you what, it's far too hot to be fiddling on the roof. For 40 degrees?
You mean fiddler on the roof.
Fiddler on the roof.
We've had
40
this
degrees
joke.
is far too hot.